Okay, so ChatGPT Search is officially live. We've had about a week and a half to test it out, get a better feel for A, what types of brands are being featured for specific commercial intent queries. How does ChatGPT Search actually structure their answers? This is going to be very focused specifically on e-com businesses, but a lot of the logic can be applied to other businesses as well. So what I did specifically here is I tested out, I'm based right now in Stockholm, Sweden. I tested out a commercial intent query about where to buy jeans, specifically in Sweden, that I could get shipped to Sweden without paying a crazy international shipping fee. So results that we see very similar to the other commercial intent type queries that we've been testing out. Typically, we'll start out with a 1 to 2 sentence overview talking about why this query actually matters. From there, we'll get a recommendation of 5 different brands to buy from. And then from there, we'll get a quick little recap right in there. Oftentimes we'll see like buying advice about things to keep in mind when you're buying a pair of jeans, let's say. So right here we have a couple like well-known international brands. We have Levi's, Wrangler, we have Lee, and then we have a couple Swedish-centric brands or brands that are much more prominent in Sweden. Tiger of Sweden, So clothing as well. So from here, I wanted to get a little bit more context about why these 5 brands were actually featured. So I started out by asking, this brand why did you choose to feature them instead of a brand like Gap that, is probably a little bit more well known internationally? The results here fascinated me. So ChatGPT was able to look into this and say, well, hey, we didn't choose Gap because they don't have or seemingly they don't have the same level of product variety, and they may not even be able to ship to you if you're based in Sweden. They said, Gap's US website doesn't offer international shipping to Sweden. They do have an international site, but it may not provide the same product range or shipping options as the US site. Then they have a source right in here. I looked into this. I confirmed Gap's international site does not ship to Sweden. But even the fact that ChatGPT was able to recognize that their main website doesn't ship internationally and their international site may only have limited product availability speaks volumes to their shipping policy. On top of that, we can see, maybe nothing super surprising here, but we can see that ChatGPT is specifically citing Gap's own page to indicate that they don't ship internationally to the same degree. This to me stands out as a huge opportunity for any e-com business. Whether you're shipping internationally, whether you just are shipping in one country or one state, make sure that your shipping policy is very clearly outlined on some page on your site that's accessible to crawlers. This is a huge opportunity to make sure that you are featured and make sure that you're not misrepresenting yourself as a brand that either doesn't ship to locations that you do ship to, or is just being unclear about where you ship. Right here, ChatGPT is able to look at it and very clearly see that Gap may not ship to Sweden, but definitely doesn't ship to the same degree internationally as they do in the US. On the other hand, we look up here and we can see some of the other more prominent brands that are featured because they do have international websites or European centric stores that ultimately leave them much more likely to be featured in here. So that's the first thing that really stood out to me. Now, the second thing that really stood out is this element right in here about customization options. So specifically, we're seeing that this brand is being featured because of all the different customization options that they have. Custom made denim jeans, allowing customers to design jeans to tailor to their preference. From there, we then dive a little bit deeper, and I asked, hey, why did you recommend Levi's instead of this brand so? And what we can see popping up is a few traits that, I would say probably aren't anything shocking when it comes to brand recognition. They're saying, hey, Levi's is a more widely recognized brand. That's why we're featuring them. But we can see one of the 3 reasons that they cite is that Levi's has a greater product variety behind it. Specifically, they're saying, hey, Levi's offers a wide variety of styles and fits. So ultimately indicating, hey, Levi's has far more variety. As a result, that's one of the 3 reasons we believe that Levi's is potentially a better option than this other brand. Again, we see shipping policies popping up in there as well. But from there, I wanted to better understand some of these elements. So asked to elaborate, why did you recommend Lee, a second brand, above So-So? We see those same three elements popping up in here as well: established brand recognition, greater product variety, and shipping policies. So I wanted to better understand, how does ChatGPT Search actually know that Lee has a greater product variety, greater product differentiation than this other brand? How many styles and fits do they offer? Gave a very vague answer, but what we can see popping up in here, while they don't specifically say how many different styles they have, we can see that every single cited source that pops up in here is Lee's own brand. And what we specifically see is these are popping up as like fit guide for women, fit guide for men. We have men shop by fit regular, and more. So ultimately, if we look at all these sources that are being cited specifically in here, we can see these three citations are all coming directly from the company website. What this tells me is product variety, product differentiation, at least at the moment, is a really crucial factor that ChatGPT Search is looking into to understand what sort of brand should they be recommending. Now, tried to dive a little bit deeper. This specifically didn't work when I asked for a tangible number. We see the same data popping up just about the different ways that you can sort your products out, so on and so forth. But from there, I wanted to get a little more context about, how did they decide that Lee is a more established brand? What led them to specifically say, hey, this is a more credible brand? What popped up in here, they list out a few different sources. Now, I looked into Heedles, and then there were a few other sources that were cited when I asked follow-up questions. Companyhistories.com. We had this vintage fashion guild popping up in there as well. Not that there's anything wrong with these sites, but I wouldn't describe them as, any of the most reputable sites on the internet. These aren't going to be, the most reputable clothing websites that are out there. Frankly, these don't seem like they're really great sources to be really citing to indicate a brand is an expert authority in their space. But what really stood out to me is this specific rationale for why Lee was specifically cited here. Now, the things they specifically talk about, and I'd encourage you to pause this and read these descriptions in detail, but the specific things that they speak to that lead them to see Lee as a reputable brand: detailed account of Lee's history, founding in 1889. We can see Lee's growth and status as a leading manufacturer. We can see insights into Lee's evolution and its impact on workwear. Now, ultimately, what this tells me is, that maybe the sources aren't necessarily the most relevant, but more importantly is, what are the specific things that are being highlighted within these sources to indicate that Lee is a reputable jean brand? What stands out here is talking about the history. How long has the company been around? What's their founding story? All that sort of stuff. Really looking at company age as a primary factor in determining reputation, but also looking at things such as innovations that are well showcased about the brand, impact on workwear and fashion, its evolution, leading manufacturer of jeans in the United States. All of these are ultimately saying, hey, we see Lee as a reputable jean brand, A, because they've been around for a long time, B, because they've contributed a lot of innovations to their space. So from our team's end, we're really trying to wrap our heads around what this means and how we can do a better job of showcasing this for brands. I'd encourage you to leave feedback in the comments. What do you think that brands should be doing? Does this change the way that you're going to approach marketing for your clients or for your own brand, let's say? Do you feel that this falls in line with what you're currently doing to optimize your site for search engines like Google? Or do you feel it's going to be a radically different approach in order to optimize your site around this new era of search? Looking forward to hearing your thoughts.